Hey man, how you doing? It's a bit of a different stream tonight. I got this keyboard here that I've modified. I've circuit bent it a long time ago, and I just recently dug it out of the basement, and I'm kind of going through it to see what interesting sounds are in it. I don't know if you're familiar with circuit bending, but basically you take old electronic devices, especially like old kind of toy keyboards, and you open them up and start making connections on the circuit board that were never meant to be. And sometimes you end up with really interesting sounds. Some of them are, well, let's say most of them are quite not so musical. But some of them can be very musical, and I think the interesting part is to try to find something that's musical in them. But tonight it's more of just like an exploratory kind of thing, because I'm getting ready to play on the Golden Shrimp Synthfest next week, and the topic is glitch music, so I figured I've got the glitch right here. Alright, let's restart this thing. I am not I'm not a tech wizard. The whole thing about circuit bending is it's a very random process, so you don't have to know anything, and the chance of breaking something like this that only costs, €5 at a flea market or whatever isn't so great anyway. So you just open it up and you start making connections, and if you find a good connection, then you put a switch on it. I got a couple switches here that I rigged up to it, and then it's also quite random when you're playing it, because sometimes you get some good noises and sometimes you don't. But what we're hearing right now is basically, if you've ever had a toy or any kind of electronic device that started making weird noises when the batteries were almost empty, essentially what I have here is a knob that's connected from the batteries to the rest of the circuit, and I'm starving it for power. And as I starve it, it starts to beg for some energy in some interesting ways. Sometimes you get really, really interesting sounds out of this process, but a lot of times it's just very, very noisy. I'm going to hit like a reset switch now, and it's going to basically randomly start to make some kind of noise. And it could be very cool, or it could be very noisy, so I'm going to turn it down a little bit before I hit it. Okay. See, that's pretty noisy. Pretty noisy right there. And these switches up here, they modify the sound a lot of times. So well, this is a funny one. So in the mode that I'm in right now with this Power Star thing, you don't know what you're going to get, but I can show you exactly, like your stream, don't know what you're going to get. But there is another way to play it, and I'll show you that real quick. Here I'm going to do basically a hard reset that just sets the keyboard back to its normal state. Okay, so it's just a typical cheap keyboard. I've got it running through the 505 here, and it has a bit of reverb on it and a bit of dynamics on it. But other than that, that's just a normal keyboard sound. And then as you go through the different sounds in the keyboard and you use these two different switches that I've hooked up here, sometimes you get something interesting, sometimes no sound comes out, sometimes only annoying sounds come out. But sometimes you get really interesting things, like, let me try to find something real quick here. So this is just the onboard string sound. Yeah, hold on, here's something interesting. So if I play a note on the string sound and hold it, and then I engage one of these switches, you get this sound here, which is also not the most musical of things, but you could do something musical with it, and it's at least semi-predictable, unlike the thing that I was doing before. Yeah, and then there's this weird thing where with this one switch, sometimes when you engage it, you get this beeping noise, and the way to get rid of that is to press the volume button about 14 times. Or actually 7 times. And then 7 more times to turn it back up. Don't ask me why. Yeah, this is an interesting one. Just playing around with it a lot. Yeah, it's a very interesting process. It can be a very time-consuming process, which is why I haven't done it in years, because I haven't had the time for it. But I figured that this was a good opportunity with the Glitch Fest to dig it out and learn something about it again. And so these sounds that I'm making now, these are actually predictable. Like, I know if I set it to strings, and I set it to a certain variation, and I use this switch, then I'll always get this sound. Like I said, this isn't the most musical of sounds, but you could, put it in a loop as part of the loop and do something musical with it. Hold on, let me get another one here that's interesting. Alright, I think it's this one. This is a clarinet sound. That's the normal sound, and then okay, that's interesting too, but it's not the one that I meant. No, that's not what it was. Hold on just a second. Not finding the one that I meant now, of course. And that's why I have a piece of paper here. I actually was planning on writing down some of the good sounds to use. But I thought I knew where this one was. Not finding it now, of course. Oh well. Some of them have a rhythmic quality that you can use to make some kind of beats with and stuff like that. Let's see here. Yeah, so the way that I'm doing it right now, where I'm not using this power starve mode, then yeah, it's basically predictable. Once you set up a certain sound, and then each sound on this keyboard has 3 or 4 different variations, and then you engage it with these 2 switches in a certain way, you'll basically always get the same thing. Sometimes you get weird effects where, because it's only a duophonic keyboard, so it cuts off if you try to play 3 notes at the same time. Sometimes you'll get some weird effects with that, because there's also like there are some of the sounds have repeating patterns, and if it engages in a certain way, then it can get unpredictable. But basically this is predictable. It's just been so long since I've used it that I've forgotten what the good sounds were. Here's a nice slap bass. No, that's not it either. Let's see here. I know I got this one somewhere here. Some kind of atmospheric kind of thing there. Some of them also just stay on once you played them. So that's an interesting one. Still not the one that I meant. Yeah, so the full disclosure, the reverb is probably definitely helping with that. Reverb makes everything sound at least semi-decent. You can also hear it kind of crackling a little bit. But there are some actually really good sounds on here on board already. Some things that you could definitely really use. I've also got these other things over here where the speaker used to be, that basically if I engage it, it acts like a kind of filter, but it tends to get squealy pretty quickly. That's why I'll just turn it on real quick just to show it really quick. But all right, so now it's on. Here's the sound without that filter, and then if I turn the filter on, it's got a little resonance in it, a little distortion even maybe. And if I turn it up, then it's going to get squealy pretty quickly. Yeah, there it's starting to go. But it can sometimes be a little interesting pickup. The other one kind of goes in the other direction, high-pitched. Sorry about that. And yeah, so basically I'm going to start going through some of these sounds in a bit of a more systematic way here in a minute or two, and just write down which ones I can actually use to make some music with. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's not something. It wouldn't be my preferred daily way to make music or something, but it can be interesting, and you can get some interesting sounds out of it that you might not otherwise get or think to make. This is an interesting one. This is like something that, depending on the frequency or the note that you're playing, it plays this repeating pattern, and it's faster or slower depending on what note it is. So if you play it up here, it's repeating very quickly. If you play it down here, you can hear it kind of kicking in down there. It's a low-pitched thing. Here it's back to making this squealing noise. The only thing to do there is to press the volume button 14 times. Okay, now that's better. I mean, the squeak is gone. Whether or not it's better is up to you. Alright, so I'm going to start going through these now. So we have the basic piano sound. That's almost like a, it's almost like a drum hit. Nice snare drum right there. And then we got that, got Count Basie there. So we got something here. Next variation, same kind of deal. Oh, that's hefty. So we'll go with that. So that's it for the piano. E piano. Turn it into a little harpsichord or something there. This is actually a nice, pretty nice sound by itself, this one. Just the duophonic keyboard is killing me a little bit. 2 notes at a time it's rough, it's rough. Little 3-5 in. And that's actually just the onboard sound. What is that? I guess that's just one of the E-piano variations. Alright, nothing there. Don't like that one so much. Sometimes the ones with chords are interesting, but not this one. Onto the harpsichord. Oh yeah. That's a sound. I don't know if it's a good one, but it is a sound. That echo there, that's actually from the keyboard itself. It's just part of the sound. Hey, yes it can. This is a Yamaha PSS-6 that I circuit bent years ago, like upwards of 10 years ago, I think. And it's been sitting in the basement for a very long time, and I'm trying to remember what it can do and what it can't do. Thanks for stopping by. As I was explaining to Ken earlier, this one switch that I put on here, for some reason, sometimes, but only sometimes, when you engage it, it starts making a high-pitched noise, but there's a trick to get rid of it, namely pressing the volume button 14 times. There, all better. I'm not really a keys player. I mostly play drums and bass guitar, but I've played like some keyboard on the side, like as a side instrument in some bands that I've been in. Like we're at the beach. That's enough of that. Let's go on to the clavichord. See, and there's one where when I put the one switch up on the clavichord, nothing. Nada. Usually the second switch is just putting like a little like kind of distortion-y effect on it. This is without. And this is with. Which can be useful sometimes. I feel like circuit bending was kind of popular around, I don't know, 2005 to 2010 or something like that, and then it's kind of gone back out of fashion a bit. Bet you never had green sleeves like that before. Yeah, definitely. So what I was telling Duquesne earlier is that there are basically two main ways that I play this keyboard in particular. What I'm doing right now with these two switches is actually pretty reproducible. So there are different sounds on the keyboard, and each one has 4 variations. And once you figure out which sound with which variation with which of these two switches, you can actually reproduce that sound reliably in the vast majority of cases. But sometimes the more interesting sounds are the ones that you get when you power starve it, which is what this switch down here does. So let me put on some strings. We'll get so this is one of the reproducible sounds. If I put on the strings, I start playing notes, and then I engage the one switch, I'll get this sound. That's with the second switch engaged. And now if I power starve it, it's going to start freaking out and making crazy noises. And sometimes they're very, very interesting, but usually they're just very noisy. So I have a limiter on the stream, so you don't have to be scared for your eardrums, but maybe for your sense of aesthetics. Sometimes you can dial in some really interesting and even musical sounds like this, but this one wasn't so good. What you can do then, I have another switch on here that's basically just like a hard reset. It's a momentary switch that just very quickly detaches the batteries from the circuit. And then if you do that while you're in this power starve mode, then sometimes it kind of resets into something interesting or something very loud. Okay, so that's more interesting than what we just had, at least. Yeah, there's definitely a storm coming. The digital storm. Sometimes you get rhythmic sounds that aren't so penetrating, which is nice. Okay, so let me go back to figuring out these noises. Let's see here. Harpsichord, clavichord, E organ. It's a very quiet one. Could one risk this on a live performance? Well, see, that's why I'm doing a little bit of prep work right now by figuring out at least which sounds are somewhat usable during a live performance, so that I don't have to do this exploratory part during my 1-hour set at Glitchfest. But the power starve thing, yeah, you can do it. It's you have to know when to quit, I guess. Well, that's got an interesting thing in there. Yeah, some bagpipes. These bagpipes need fixing. There are your bagpipes. Well, that actually also sounds nice. Over here on the right side, I've got a couple things that kind of work like filters, but they're very temperamental. They'll start squeaking at you if you turn them up very much. But sometimes it gives the sound a little edge. Like here's that organ sound. just as it is. If I put the one filter on, gives a little some of that soft machine kind of edge to it. Some Mike Ratcliffe soft machine, distorted organ. It's a nice little atmospheric effect. Nice depends on your own depends on your definition of nice. Sometimes these sounds that already have the chords per note are interesting because it's only a duophonic keyboard. So if you just like one of these effects going on. Yeah, it's you got to be tolerant of it. It's definitely not anything for if you're striving for perfection in sound or in method. Find this one sound that I have not been able to find again yet that I used to like quite a bit. Yeah, what's driving me crazy right now is that I can't find this one again. But that's why I'm going to make a spreadsheet and a PowerPoint presentation. A database. I could have sworn it was one of these. That's interesting. Not what I meant, but interesting. So we're gonna kill that before it kills us. This is an interesting one. This is like this one always reminds me of some kind of process going on in Star Trek. Like beam me up. there's our beeping. Gotta press the volume button 14 times. Okay, that's this part of the process, guys. Sorry. There we go. All fixed up. But listen to that cool sound. Where are you gonna sample that? That's the real sound. Yeah, just go out and buy yourself one of these keyboards. If you look on any kind of classified ads in the internet and search for keyboards under the rubric of toys, you'll probably find one of these for £5 or something like that. And then it's just a matter of opening it up and experimenting a little bit, and then grab your soldering iron and hook it up. Although I can't guarantee that yours will sound anything like this one, better, worse, or anything in between. There are very few guarantees in circuit bending. This one has this kind of like detuned kind of noise. Yeah, but this is the cheap version, right? This is only £5. It sounds good in comparison to another real piece of equipment. Alright, let's cancel that out. This is driving me nuts though, that I can't find this one sound. Be here somewhere. I might never find it. Yeah, exactly. So that's like I've used this keyboard in a few recordings back when I made it, and that's exactly how I use it. Basically, just adding in a little extra thing, a little extra sound that you kind of wonder what's making that, where's that coming from, and not like the central element and what was going on. I might never find the sound again. That's quite true. I like this though. This has a nice little. And with the effects from the 505, of course, you can dial in some interesting things too. this is a little dynamics and a little reverb. Makes everything sound wonderful. Alright, we're getting chaotic again here. This is a piece that I like to call the last day of the lemmings. The final fall of the lemming folk. We're back in Crazyville now with the circuit, with the Power Starve. Einstürzen and Neubauten needed like years to make this kind of thing, and now it's just coming out of a cheap keyboard. Ooh, that was horrid. You are right. Whoa, sorry about that one. That's what I'm saying, this Power Starve can be interesting, but it's dabbling with the dark arts, for sure. Sometimes it's worth it, sometimes you get something beautiful out of it. Just sometimes. And the rest of the time you get a cheap keyboard. Oh, here's another thing. It also has beats and songs that you can play from it. Here we get the nice sample song, but you also have something like here's a dance tune, and helpfully you can take the instruments out of it so that you just have the drums, which is nice sometimes. And the drum sounds can also get pretty wonky with the switches sometimes. Hold on, let's get our little hiss in there. There's a nice glitchy beat for you. Oh, there you go. This is pretty sure I've heard this on a Radiohead album. There's with the little filter from the keyboard. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. This is an interesting thing. It's going to, yeah, no problem, man. I appreciate you stopping in. Like I said, this isn't quite my normal fare that I've been streaming recently, but I figured if I'm going to sit here and explore this thing, I might as well share it with anybody who's interested in sharing it. So thanks for stopping by. What you're hearing right now, the keyboard is going to go up and up and up and up and up and up, as you hear. And at some point, it's going to start playing a very, very slow beat. There it is. Good night. That's the hit of the evening right there. It's hard to tell where I am with the looper right now. Gotta pay attention to the lights here for a minute. Let's see here. Let's set up on it. This is also only had this looper for about 2 weeks now, so I'm still figuring out the ins and outs of it. Alright, let's see if we can do this right this time. Okay, that's getting a bit noisy for me. Let's see what else we have here. Still on the quest to find the one sound that I wanted to find. That's a good one. Yeah, actually, I'm playing Synthfest next week for my first time, and only because I saw that the topic was glitch, and I just happened to pull this out of the basement a few days before that for a different reason, and I thought that's got to be kismet. So I signed up, and I'm going to walk people through circuit bending in this keyboard a little bit, and I'm going to start by start with some of the sounds that are more predictable and try to actually make some music, and I'm going to progressively move towards the power starve, wild, unpredictable, noisy stuff, and finish it out with some kind of cacophonous thing in that direction. Is my plan. I'm glad they only gave me a 1 hour slot instead of 2 hours, because I don't know if I could fill, well, I could fill 2 hours, but I don't think anybody would want to listen to it for 2 hours. So 1 hour is great. That's perfect. I can talk a little bit about circuit bending and make some noise. That's all I want. I like this sound. Are you playing, attending, anything like that? Attending feels weird there, but we do call it a festival, right? So. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. I haven't been around Twitch that long, well, just a couple months now, and the synthfest scene in particular. But I've really, really enjoyed the people and the community. Some really kind people and some really knowledgeable people, and yeah, I feel I feel very comfortable performing in that position with that group. So that's it's a good thing. Ah, this is the sound. This is the sound that I've been looking for. All right, here it is. I like this one. Woo! Listen to that. I feel like I'm watching a documentary about some amazing place in Scandinavia or something. Hey, thanks for the raid. I think that's the first raid I've ever gotten. So I appreciate you guys coming by. This is a stream where I'm basically exploring here a bit with this keyboard, Yamaha PSS-6. It's basically a children's keyboard that I've modified in a process called circuit bending. Hey there. Which is basically where you take one of these keyboards, open it up, and start making connections between different parts of the integrated circuits until you find an interesting noise that comes out, and then you wire up a switch between those 2 points so that you can recreate that interesting sound whenever you'd like, and you can get some really interesting sounds out of these cheap old keyboards. So this is one of my, I just now found this again. Sometimes it could be difficult to reproduce the sounds that you've had before, but I've managed to find one of the sounds that I really like. I have 2 switches over here that I put on the keyboard, and this is the sound without the switch engaged. Oh, sorry, that's still with 1 switch engaged. So that's just the normal keyboard sound, or one of the keyboard sounds, and here's with the switch engaged, which I rather like. I've got this other switch over here that's kind of a filter. And there's all kinds of different noises on here, many of which are not as musical as the one that you've just been listening to. I'll show you a couple of others. So here we have our normal piano sound on the keyboard, and if I flip this 1 switch, it gets rather bassy and distorted. And this is, like I said, basically just opening up the keyboard and connecting 2 points on the integrated circuit. So you can approach it from different angles. One of the people who kind of invented the idea of circuit bending, he's very much, and he's been very influential. He's very much of the school of you don't need to know anything about electronics or anything like that, and you should just go in with an open mind and start poking around and see what you find. But of course, if you want to, you can learn some about it and get a bit of an idea of what to look for and what things might work well and what things to avoid. Sometimes you can kill these keyboards quite easily by making the wrong connection. And I would say I've learned a little bit about electronics during this process, but I'm still a complete novice as far as that goes. But you also get just a kind of like a practical experience with looking for certain things on certain circuits and things like that. By the way, I've tuned into your stream a couple times recently. I really enjoy it. There's something very soothing about the about the little organisms swimming around there and watching them do their things. I quite like that. And so here, this is the things that I'm kind of going through here now is the different sounds that are already on the keyboard, and then when you do these different connections, sometimes you'll get something out of it, and sometimes nothing comes out, and sometimes only terrible noises come out. But it's, on the whole, somewhat predictable, because if you pick the sound that you had before and you engage the switch that you had before, you will get the same sound out of it again. So here's an interesting little rhythmic thing. But what the keyboard also has, and maybe you've experienced this before yourselves, if you have a toy or something like that that's battery driven and it starts to run out of energy and it starts making weird noises, well, you can recreate that effect by putting a knob on here, which I've done, that is basically just sits between the batteries and the rest of the circuit. So you can do what's called a power starve and recreate that kind of glitchy, crazy random effect that happens when the things start to run out of batteries. So I'll do that now. It can get rather noisy, so I'm going to turn down just a little bit. But sometimes really interesting sounds come out of it as well. So sometimes it helps if you engage a sound and then do the power starve. So we'll do that. So just a nice string sound, and now I'm going to turn the knob and we'll see what happens. And this is the part that's really random, because you're never going to get the same exact thing twice when you do this, basically. Like I said, it gets rather noisy. But there's a little interesting thing in there. Not that musical though. Yeah. There you go. We're playing Contra now. You've just picked up the machine gun. And you're blasting aliens. That's exactly what this thing's good for. Just don't forget your Konami code. And then I have this other switch on here that's basically like a hard reset of the whole thing. If you do it while the power starve knob is disengaged, so you have full power to the keyboard, then you're basically just turning it back on to its normal state, and you'll get normal sounds out of it again. But if you use it while you are in this power starved state, then it will reset into another iteration of this craziness, usually even noisier than before. So I'm going to do it, but I'm going to turn down the input volume just a bit first. Okay, we actually got one this time that's less noisy, which is nice than the previous one. And then you can dial this in. So what I'm doing right here is I'm just making very slight adjustments to this power starve knob. Also quite noisy, but very interesting, I think. And you can incorporate this kind of thing into something that actually does sound musical. Just maybe not as the principal voice, the principal instrument that you're using. These sounds here also, when it's in this power starve mode, are also altered a lot of times by the switches that I put on here. So this is in one position with no switches, and then if I start turning on the switches, that's one switch, that's the other. Here they are both together. Not so nice. That's kind of interesting. So, now I've reset it. Or at least I thought I did, but the switches are still on. There we go. Now it's reset. The keyboard also has some sounds on it that are also not bad, I think, for being this little old kid's keyboard. And then it has some terrible ones on it, like a slap bass that just sounds awful. This one uses 2 integrated circuits, and I'm not sure exactly how the sounds are set up on this one. There are some different methods that they use to generate the sounds in these things, and I'm not keen on this one. But basically, what you're hearing here is the result of 2 connections that are made on the same integrated circuit. And you can also, when you're doing this kind of thing, once you open it up and see what circuits are inside, you can go look those circuits up and see what the different pins do or what they control. And sometimes you can figure out some interesting things by doing that. Like you might see that there's a timer function on a certain circuit, and that could be something that controls the frequency of the notes or something like that. Sometimes you'll even what can be interesting is to build a little circuit that you basically put into the keyboard, which I didn't do with this one, but which I've done with other things. So basically, like something that will take a signal from one part of the keyboard and inject it into another part of the keyboard, but at a certain frequency, like kind of like a low, like a LFO filter or something like that. And so sometimes you can get some really interesting stuff with that, but that's a bit more complicated than this kind of pure just open it up and make a couple connections and see what happens type of thing, which can be really fun or sometimes extremely frustrating, especially for those around you, those living with you who have to hear it and don't have the joy of finding the treasures. And basically what I wanted to do tonight was to go through some of these sounds and write them down, but I've been a little less structured than I meant to be. Here's an oddity of this keyboard. One of the 2 switches, when you engage it, sometimes leads to this sound. And the way to get rid of that is to press the volume button 7 times, and then it will stop. 8 times, sorry. There. And then we have to press it a couple more times to turn the volume back up. But don't ask me why. that's just how it is. That's just how it goes. We also have some songs on the keyboard that you can manipulate as well. Can be interesting. They get rather loud. So here we have a nice dance track. You can take the rest away except for the drums. And then you can make some kind of glitchy drum beat here. There we go. That's almost usable in something. Oh, with that little filter on it, that doesn't sound bad. But a lot of times it just gets noisy. Now what do we do now? It's just decided to turn itself off. No, I haven't tried that actually, and I don't know that I've, well, so what some people do is, just a second. What some people do is, instead of just wiring up one or two connections that they find that are interesting, if they find that there are a lot of different interesting things and they don't want to kind of decide right away, because it can be really, when you take these keyboards apart, there are a lot of little parts that like to fall all over the place, and screws, and they're not very well built in the first place, so sometimes it's very difficult to reassemble them. And basically, unless you have like a really dedicated workspace just for doing this kind of thing, and you want to leave it there, you want to try to open it up and do something and finish it in one setting. At least that's been kind of my experience. And so what some people will do is just say, look, there seem to be a lot of interesting things in here, so what I'll do is I'll just connect a cable to each pin, and I will connect those cables to a patch bay that has a connector for every single one of those pins, and just, you know, solder it up like that and then close the thing. And then you can take, just the patch cables and make the connections at will. And you could definitely try to connect some different keyboards to one another doing something like that in a way that wouldn't even require you to keep them open, both open, doing open heart surgery on both at the same time, which would be really interesting. But I guess that the potential for it crashing out is pretty high. That's also another thing. There are different keyboards have different reputations for their suitability for circuit bending, because some of them don't start making weird noises like this one does when you power start it, for example. They'll just shut off and not work anymore. But sometimes you get these nice ones here that do interesting things instead of just shutting down. Here's let me do something a little less, well, not less noisy, but noisy in a different way. This is something that I recorded earlier in the stream tonight, using a couple sounds from the keyboard and trying to make something at least semi-musical out of it. So we started out with something like this. This was a product of this Power Starve thing that I was just using, the kind of very random thing, but you can capture the sound for a looper or something. And then this other little sound, whether or not this is actually more musical than what you've heard so far is, of course, a matter of interpretation and taste. But then there's some things that actually resemble some still rather noisy, but you can try to do some somewhat musical things with it. Yeah, and I'm still trying to figure out where the good sounds were, because I made this thing a long time ago and haven't played with it very much since. And I've forgotten where all the good sounds on the keyboard are, so I'm kind of going through some of them here tonight and trying to figure out where they were. Hey, hello readers. We're doing some experimental stuff tonight. Hey Toto, hey OpenSet, hello everyone. Doing some experimenting in preparation for next week's festival. I dug one of my old circuit bent keyboards out of the basement last week, actually before I knew that glitching was the topic of SynthFest, and I thought, that's kismet. I'm going to have to sign up for SynthFest and play some glitchy music on this circuit bent keyboard. But tonight it's going to be a little less musical, it's more exploratory, because I don't remember where the good sounds are on this keyboard. If you guys aren't familiar with circuit bending, basically the idea is you take an old cheap keyboard, you open it up, and you start connecting different points on different components inside, especially on like the integrated circuits. And sometimes you get lucky and it makes interesting noises. And then if you find something good, you can wire up a little switch in between those 2 points. I've got a couple switches up here that I've put on there. Or you can put a potentiometer on there, a little knob to control how much is going through there. And this is a Yamaha PSS-6 that I bought for, I think, €5 or something like that at a flea market. And it has some really interesting sounds inside. So I'm trying to remember where the interesting ones were, because next to all the interesting and nice sounds, it has a bunch of terrible, no good sounds, and a bunch of things that make no sound whatsoever. Thanks for all the follows, everyone. This is incredible. This is by far my most popular stream so far, so I guess I should just play children's keyboards most of the time. So this is what you're hearing here is one of the sounds with one of these switches engaged, and it repeats forever. So I'll restart it here. This is the keyboard as it is, with no effects except for a little reverb from the 505, just because that makes everything sound better. So you get that nice crackly keyboard sound. It actually has some sounds on it that are really not half bad by themselves already. I'm originally from the States, but I live in Germany. Been living in Germany for over 10 years now. Alright, let's see if we can find some interesting noises here. Alright, so let's go to the E organ. This is the normal organ sound. Let's put some of these switches on and see what happens. There's something, it's a little quiet. Yeah. here's an interesting thing. Here's a little interesting thing. This one switch, half the time when you engage it, right after you turn on the keyboard, it starts making this noise. Very nice. But there's a trick to get rid of it, and that is, this doesn't have a volume knob or a volume slider or anything. It has a volume button that you press to decrease or increase. Just one button, not two. If you press this button 8 times, then the beeping stops. We were already past the number 1, so it was a little bit less than that. So don't ask me why that works, but it works. Okay, so here's the normal. Normal sound. This one switch tends to make kind of a distorty kind of thing. Each of these sounds also has variations. So there's another variation of the organ sound. There's with the distortion switch engaged. This is with the crazy effect switch engaged. Try it with both of them. Not much different. But as you can imagine, some of these things you can actually put in music and have it sound like something musical. A lot of them you can't. There's our beep again. Let me press this button a couple times. There it goes. The stream's going to be a bit noisy tonight. I hope that's okay. If not, sorry. Oh, there's a nice big fat noise. Alright. Another interesting thing, some of the noises are different depending on whether you engage the switch before you play it, or whether you play the note and then engage the switch. Yeah, that's a great question, and I don't know at all, because my knowledge of electronics is very, very limited. I've learned a little bit in the process of doing circuit bending, but not much. Because it's cheap, I'm guessing. Because, you know, that's a really good question. I've actually never thought about that, but that's a very good question. Okay, so these are all the predictable, well, let's say semi-predictable parts of the keyboard. But there's another very interesting part to this keyboard and a lot of other circuit bend things. Here's an interesting one. This is one of those ones where if I engage the switch and then I press the button, nothing happens. But if I hold the key and then I engage the switch, we get this interesting kind of thing. But what I was saying is that there's another mode to using this, and that's the power starve mode. The power starve mode is basically just like if you've ever had a toy. Yeah, exactly. You can use a lot of these things, like especially these rhythmic things, as the bass of a track, or the beat or something like that. Definitely. There's the power starve mode, and that is basically simulating the effect that you've probably experienced yourselves at some point, where you have a toy or something like that that's running out of batteries and starts making crazy noises. Well, you can simulate that by just putting a potentiometer in between the battery and the rest of the circuit. And when you engage that, things start to get quite hectic and chaotic, and a lot of times very noisy, but sometimes very, very interesting as well. So, hold on just a second. Okay. Sometimes it helps this process if you start it out with a little bass noise. So this is just a string noise from the keyboard itself, and then I'm going to engage this knob down here that's starving the power from the rest of the circuit, and we'll see what happens. Now this one's well, this time around is actually pretty quiet. A lot of times it gets very, very loud and noisy. Let me throw this switch and see what happens. There's no noise. Yeah, so exactly. What I will definitely promise you guys for Synthfest is one half of the building, the glitch part. I make no promises concerning anything to do with perfection, but I do promise glitches. That's on the menu. Let me see if I can find a nice sound to balance it out. I had this one really nice one. I keep forgetting where it is. This one's interesting too. So it's probably a little loud. I'll turn that down a bit. The other thing that I have on here that I only use every once in a while because it's very temperamental is a three-way switch that switches between two different potentiometers connected to different points on one of the circuits. That they kind of work like a filter, but they're very temperamental in that they start squealing very quickly. So I'm going to turn one on and see what happens. Okay, that's, you can hear, that's without that filter. That's with it, but if I start to turn it up, it's going to very quickly start to feedback on me. There's one in the other direction. Sometimes it can be nice, that filter, to give something a little bit more oomph. But a lot of times it's just crazy. Also interesting, this is only a duophonic keyboard. You can only play two notes at once. Try to play a third one, doesn't work. But when you start one of these repeating patterns, sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it'll still let you play more than two notes at a time. Well, it'll let you play two, and it'll play its repeating pattern as well, which can be quite interesting as well. Back in power starve mode. Sometimes you can catch something like that repeating pattern that we just had. Now I've caught it in this power starve mode, and you can sometimes play around with it a bit. The switches that I have up here also, when it's in this power starve mode, also a lot of times affect what you're hearing. So this is with this power starve knob set about to 11 o'clock, and then if I engage one of the switches, there's a different one. And I promise that during Synthfest, at least part of the time, I'm actually going to try to do something that's a bit more musical. I like this bass tone that's down in there though. There's what that filter. Diabrophiles, yes, but also Planescape for any Dungeons and Dragons fans out there. Planescape. Hey, Sazia. Nice to see you. I'm experimenting with this old, yeah, this is some kind of music that's in certain cultures. This is considered a delicacy, I've heard. Probably not in mine, but oh well. I'm experimenting with this old circuit bent keyboard that I made about 10 years ago, and that I haven't had out of the basement since then, about trying to get the good glitches out. Alright, let's try to exercise the bad glitches and leave the good ones in. Of course, if you want to cheat, you can also start turning on some effects from the 505. Really, I just have it running with a little bit of reverb from the, I guess it's a bit more reverb than I thought it was, from the 505. Okay, so, this is that Power Starve. I think that's probably accurate. So this is this Power Starve mode that's basically recreating the effect of batteries dying in an old keyboard. Now I'm going to try to go back and find this one sound that I used to like a lot, that I've actually used in a recorded track or two a long time ago. But there are all these different sounds and different combinations, and I think at some point I wrote down which ones were good, but that was a long time ago, and I don't have it anymore. So, let me see. No, not that one, not that one. Okay, then we got some crazy stuff going on there again. Oh, here we go. This is one sound that I like. This is a sound I call the Star Trek sound. Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the raid and all the follows. Too kind. It's got a little edge to it. Oh, here, this is a good one. running on melodies again. Here we go, here we go. This is an interesting one. I really want to find this one sound. It's driving me nuts that I can't find it. Oh, that's our Picard sound again. No, it's not that one. Is it clarinet? Oh, that's an interesting one. That's exactly right. Happy accidents and trying to find the sweet spots and trying to remember where the sweet spots are can be the ultimate circuit bending challenge. And for some reason, it seems that many of the people who engage in this hobby are not the most organized of people or don't tend to keep track of what they do when they do their things. So sometimes, or at least a lot of the times, I find you'll read up about a certain keyboard or a certain toy or something like that online, and people will say, yeah, it's excellent, I did some circuit bending on it and I got all these crazy sounds out of it, and then you ask them, what did you do? And they don't know. Just like I don't know what I did with this thing all those years ago, because you were just excited about closing it and starting to play around with it instead of writing down. Yeah, there's some excellent stuff on YouTube, but some of it's kind of hard to find as well, I've found. I guess I haven't found. I want the sound. I want to find the sound. Here we go. I think I have it. It's a flute. It's a flute. No, that's not it. Hold on. Here we go. Okay, so this is the flute sound without the switch engaged. Here's with the switch. I like that one quite a bit. That's something actually pretty cool, pretty musical sounding on that one. And it's just, I think, very interesting to think that nobody planned this for this keyboard to be capable of making this particular noise. This was not something that somebody programmed. It's just a coincidence based on the circuit that's in there, and rewiring it in a way that it wasn't meant to be rewired can give you something so nice and so purposeful. I mean, so I don't know. It sounds very intended to me. Another interesting thing is there are some songs and beats on the keyboard itself, and you can do some interesting things with those as well. So let's listen to Silent Night as performed by a Yamaha PSS-6. Very tranquil, lovely. This is the content that you came on Twitch to see tonight, whether or not you knew it. So, but let's throw one of these switches then. Okay, so now what it does sometimes when you start these songs or beats and you turn on one of the switches, sometimes it turns itself off. And let's see, is it going to do it or is it not going to do it? Looks like it's not doing it. Sometimes it goes into this weird mode where it starts progressing in frequencies, going higher and higher and higher, step by step, until it finally starts playing the original beat at a very, very slow tempo. But this time it just decided to turn off and stop working. That happens with this sort of thing. This is what rap sounded like whenever this keyboard was made. There you go. I heard this on a Tom York record. Glitch tunes. Gotta get a little loop going here. delay effects and everything from the 505. So I'm going to be hopping off of here pretty quickly, but I'm gonna do a little bit more of the crazy stuff here just for a minute because it's fun. The Power Starve knob. Realm of white noise, the sound of the group, some other who decided that the second half of the record should just be noise. Not far off. But they do a lot of tape splicing to get that. I just have to turn a little knob here on a keyboard. Isn't that lovely? I've got to do the same. I've got to get out of here and go to sleep. That's one of the difficulties with playing with these things is that there are unlimited random noises in them, and it can be a lot of fun to look for them. So sometimes it's hard to stop. Let's see here. Who can we raid? Anybody have a raid target for me? Let me see if I can find somebody. Thanks for stopping by, Sound Art Composer. Appreciate you spending some time with me. And to everybody else as well, thanks for coming by and listening to some crazy noises. My hope is that for next week for Synthfest, I'll have found some of the nicer noises by then and can spend a little less time in the experimental phase or getting to the making music phase. Thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah, so I was just saying, you're right, this, I can hear myself better now as well. Just saying thanks for stopping by, thanks for spending some time, and thanks, I appreciate that. And, we'll see how it goes. I'm really excited for Synthfest. And anyway, just thanks to this community for being what it is. I feel really, I was just saying, I think before you guys came, that I feel very comfortable, even in the short time that I've been here, and feel very comfortable interacting and playing with you guys. So thanks for being the welcoming group that you are. And I'm still trying to figure out. I'm floundering here. I'm trying to buy myself some time to figure out who to raid. Let's see here. Here we go. How about Sid Heresy? I guess you know about that. All right, I'm gonna send you over there. Thanks very much for coming in. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Let's see if I can do this right. Oh, be aware that Sid Heresy's channel is intended for mature audiences. I didn't know that, but apparently it is. So if you're under the age of mature, beware. Thanks everyone.